Okay. Hey, everybody. Um, it's Anthony Stewart here, Food for Thought. We are going to get into a big one today. This is the one that I've been promising some friends, and it keeps popping up. We're going to talk cholesterol. They say LDL is bad. Now, we're on this channel, we're questioning everything people are saying and what the dogma and what the world thinks. So, we're going to get into a little bit of science, a little bit of history, and I'm going to show you a different side that might, have some weight. Once again, I am not a doctor. I'm not trying to prescribe or influence you in any way. I'm just sharing my opinion on how I feel about cholesterol, and we're going to talk about what it is. And there's going to be some facts. There's going to be some, my sort of spin on it, and hopefully I can give you enough information that you can make your own decision and see how you want to go about this, because it's a very important thing, and I think we've been sort of hoodwinked a little bit in history about cholesterol. First and foremost, they say HDL cholesterol is your good cholesterol. They say LDL cholesterol is your bad cholesterol. First things first, HDL and LDL are not cholesterol. They are the carrier molecules that carry cholesterol through your body. HDL stands for high density lipoprotein. LDL stands for low density lipoprotein. And basically, I'm going to try and keep this as layman as possible, is the LDL carries the stuff out and the HDL carries the stuff back into your liver. So what happens when we metabolize cholesterol? This is going to be very loose, so don't hold me on this. This is just giving you a broad idea. So eat, then you can't digest fat directly. So what it does is it packages it, and it pops into your lymphatic system into these particles called chylomicrons. Okay, so they're big, right? It carries it out, goes into your bloodstream, comes to your liver, and does a big delivery, and then gets smaller. Turns into something called an IDL, which is an intermediate density lipoprotein. Then it goes around and does its thing. Then it turns into a VDL, very low density lipoprotein. Then it turns into a low density lipoprotein. Then it turns into an HDL. Now, I know that it's not very, like, people are going to be like, there's way more to it than that, but that's what it basically is. So the lipoprotein molecules are buses. They carry things around and drop things off where they need it. And one of those passengers on those buses would be cholesterol. Now, a couple things about cholesterol. Now that we know that high density lipoprotein and low density lipoprotein are not cholesterol, they carry cholesterol around in your blood. Okay, so what we have, I wrote some things down because this is very important. We have to first figure out what cholesterol is. Okay, what cholesterol is it is present in the cell membrane, strengthening the cell wall and aiding the exchange of nutrients and waste across cell membranes. Pretty important, right? Sounds like it. It's also a major component of myelin in the central nervous system, which the myelin sheath is what insulates the nerve cells and is essential for proper functioning of the nervous system. Sounds pretty important, right? It's also an antioxidant in the brain, protecting against oxidative damage associated to aging and other stuff. Sounds pretty important, right? We know the brain is made up of fat, so, cholesterol is very important to the brain function and longevity and health. So, also, it's a steroid hormone precursor, vital to the production of cortisol, which can be good and is natural, can be bad in a sense of adrenal fatigue and cortisol and adrenal burnout. And it's also production of the reproductive hormones, testosterone, and all the estrogens. So right there, we've got 4 reasons why cholesterol is big. Another one is very vital. We've talked about this before with vitamin D, is it's needed to produce vitamin D from UVB light from sun exposure. So you need the cholesterol for this to happen. This is all natural processes of cholesterol. It's also a precursor to produce bile acids, which help break down fats for digestion. So right there, 6 reasons why cholesterol is vitally important to a lot of functions in your body. To say one is good and one is bad, we have to first understand that they have different functions. These lipoproteins carry the cholesterol to do these things. So when we're saying bad cholesterol, we have to go back in time into a little bit of history. Okay? So this gets a little tricky, and what we want to separate fact from fiction and hype. All right. One more thing about cholesterol: 75% of our cholesterol is made endogenously. That's by our own body. So 25% of it is from dietary sources. Okay, so what we eat. So when we measure this stuff, it's very hard to get an accurate measurement. So that being said, we got to go back and find out how this good and bad came to be. We're going to do the Coles Notes version, but I urge you to read The Big Fat Surprise by Nina Teicholz. I'll put the link again down below. But there goes through the history of how we vilified this fat, and saturated fat is linked to cholesterol. So go back in time to about the 1950s. Eisenhower was president. He had a heart attack. The world went fat crazy because heart disease crazy, because they wanted to know what happened. And he was out of the Oval Office for like 10 days or something, and it was insane. So the war on fat began. Now, they didn't realize it was fat, and you'll come to realize that it's not fat. But what happened was they started studying the effects of fat and cardiovascular disease, trying to find out what caused atherosclerosis and cardiovascular disease. There was a guy, his name was Ancel Keys. He was a physiologist from the University of Minnesota or something like that. Anyway, very big influenced. He came up with something called the heart health hypothesis, which basically he was trying to show that LDL cholesterol, low density lipoprotein, directly caused atherosclerosis. And the way he influenced people was he did this study called the 7 Nations study, which later on in history we find that he cherry-picked this data, which actually didn't. It was all epidemiology. It wasn't causation. It was correlation, and we know correlation does not mean causation. So basically, using his influence, and then there's speculation all over the place about how he was influenced, but he changed the world's mind on saturated fat causes heart disease. Specifically, LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, starts plaquing in your arteries and builds up and is causal to a heart attack or heart disease. Now, I urge you to do your own research about this, because if this is a factor in your life, you deserve to make your own decision. Now, this comes into play with, when a standard of care might be a hot elevated LDL is grounds to prescribe a statin. Now, I'm not going to say anything else except for go do some research, because if this greatly affects you, or you're worried, or you have a history of heart disease in your family, you deserve to make your own decision and get this stuff clear in your head. Now, what I found with, like a lot of people, was when I got my blood tested, my LDL cholesterol was through the roof. Was it a cause for concern? My doctor wanted me to go on a statin, and the way I thought about this was, well, my HDL is really good, the good cholesterol. My triglycerides are really low, which is the fat in your blood, which is really good. But this LDL is elevated, and do I have to be worried about it? Well, you know what? I didn't take the statin. my personal opinion. And I did some research and I started digging about functioning and what cholesterol means, how important it is to our vital function, how important it is for our nervous system, for our immune system, what these things are doing. So remember, I've always said about the communication between different systems in your body functioning at the same way. Well, this is just another thing that if it's not functioning correctly, could be problematic, in my opinion. Or if there's damage to it, it could be problematic. What causes damage? Glycation, calcification. These are mitigated by not eating sugar, by controlling your calcium via vitamin D, vitamin K2, magnesium. So all these have to play a factor in how well you're thinking. Now, there is a test. I don't know how to do it. I want to do it sometime this year in Vancouver. And it's called a Coronary Arterial Calcium Score. And what they do is they do an MRI of your coronary arteries, and they basically take a scan of the plaquing or the calcification that's going on in your arteries to see if you're in danger or not. To me, that makes sense. Because if your heart is not showing any signs of atherosclerotic plaquing or calcification, well, then this means the cholesterol might not be as big of a deal to you. So we know now cholesterol is vitally important. We know now that they are carriers. LDL and HDL are carriers of cholesterol. So maybe it's not the amount of LDL, it's how well it's functioning. That ties into your metabolic health, which we know metabolic syndrome is diagnosed by 5 markers: low HDL, high triglycerides, high fasting blood glucose, hypertension or high blood pressure, overweight, and obesity. Also insulin resistance, but that's a pretty good marker. If you mark 3 of those 5, that is a metabolic syndrome. That is cause for concern. Now, maybe if you're metabolically functioning properly and you're metabolically healthy, that LDL becomes a question of functional, if it's functioning or not. We know too, oxidation of polyunsaturated fatty acids is bad. We know they pumped saturated fat so much into us that is bad for us that they forgot to realize that saturated fat is more structurally sound. The more unsaturated a fat is, the more volatile and prone to oxidation it is. Whether it oxidizes before we consume it, whether it oxidizes in our bodies, that's up for debate. That's something to be said. Now, I believe vegetable oils are poison. There is nothing beneficial. The reason why they got us to eat polyunsaturated fat was because they directly lower our LDL cholesterol. Now, one thing happens, but maybe if your LDL is functional and your metabolism is functioning properly, you're insulin sensitive, and now your fat metabolism is healthy, maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe they can tell now. Actually, there is a test about the particle size of LDL. So what you want is the buoyant ones that are floating around. The more oxidized they get, that's when they cause an immune response and call the macrophages, which is our white blood cells, to come in and start building up around this foam. So it's all tied in. Your cholesterol is individual. And I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying do your own research about this stuff, because it makes me wonder, and these questions I have, is if we need it for 6 vital functions, no matter what, do we really want to interfere with Mother Nature, take a drug that impedes that natural process? I don't know. And I'm being straight up. I made a decision based on me and when I dug into this, I realized that I believe my personal health is, the cholesterol doesn't really matter. I'm lean. All my other markers are great. And if I just pose this question, if cholesterol is so important in these aspects, why are we trying to screw with it if we're not sick in the first place, is what I'm trying to say. I found last summer I did not burn in the sun. Why? First time in my life, I was out in the sun almost 7 days a week, more than 4 hours a day, did not have a shred of burn. Why? Maybe it was because my cholesterol that I'm eating is so high. Another thing I wanted to talk about is this is why an egg used to be bad for us, because of the high cholesterol in the yolk. But now, it's funny how the American Heart Association has now deemed saturated fat not a compound of concern. It is not of concern anymore. Dietary saturated fat. Nobody told us. There was no press conference saying, wait a minute, 30, 40, 50 years of research was kind of wrong, and this stuff is showing to actually have beneficial effects and is a little bit more structurally viable in your body. Nope, they didn't say it. They buried it on one of the pages, and you can do your own research about this. So now an egg is once again very healthy for us. So I'm trying to keep this short and to the point, but there is information out there and you can make your own decision on this stuff. But, you know, I feel for people that have been programmed that LDL cholesterol is bad, you're going to have a heart attack. That's not true. That's not the case. They cannot prove causation. They cannot prove 100% without a shadow of a doubt that LDL causes atherosclerosis. Could it be a factor? Possibly. Is your metabolic health an even bigger factor? Most likely. But I urge you to do your own research on this because they're not going to tell you. And I believe that why would we be stopping a natural process with medication that we probably may not need depending on our context? And like I said, your whole body revolves around systems that are communicating with each other. Hormones are of vital importance. Cholesterol makes those fucking hormones. Do you really want to be stopping that natural signal? I don't know. I am choosing to eat a high-fat diet, high in cholesterol, and letting my body function normally, as normal as I can, without any intervention. And I'm testing this with my blood sugar. I'm testing this by the way I'm feeling. I'm testing this by getting my energy from fat, saturated fat, from animal sources. And that's the way I get my energy. Now, may I drop dead of a heart attack in 5 years? Yes. Is it because of LDL cholesterol? Maybe. I just am trying to make educated, logical, critical thinking decisions based on a lot of information that they don't tell us. And if you trace back the history of this stuff, it's fascinating. Now, there was two scientists that were at play here. One was about vilifying fat, and one was about vilifying sugar. And because of Ancel Keys' influence in the government, and who knows what else, maybe some lobbying, some industry funding going on, basically because he dominated, and it's well documented in history that Ancel Keys was very intimidating and didn't lose arguments, even with his friends. But this scientist in the UK, his name was Carl Jung. He believed sugar was the problem and the damage it caused was leading to heart disease. Ancel Keys won the political battle and pushed him, and almost like he drove him out of the science academia. This is there in history. Now, is it possible that all this time, all this low-fat craze has been wrong? It is very possible. And all I'm saying is I'm urging you to learn about your metabolic function, learn about what this stuff is. I believe seed oils, vegetable oils, polyunsaturated fat, specifically linoleic acid, is terrible for you to be consuming from man-made sources. We do need omega-6 fatty acids. They are essential, but we can get them through natural sources. Now, if you feel that animals aren't the way to go, coconut oil is a great saturated fat that's high in a whole bunch of other things that is a good alternative. Monounsaturated fats, you can kind of look them at as middle, but wait a minute, olive oil is good for us. It probably is good for us. It's got nutrition. But the monounsaturated side of things means it's a little bit more volatile than a saturated fat. And we'll go into this a little deeper, but I wanted to get this out about cholesterol because there's a lot of information out there. And what you think might not be what they tell you might not be right. And what they're telling you, I think you should dig into it for yourself, especially if you're concerned about your cholesterol. Become a cholesterol ninja, and find out for yourself, because there's a big debate going on, and it's kind of funny when you inject a little bit of logic, how this stuff, you weed out all the bullshit. And I'm choosing the side of logic here. Cholesterol is vital. We need it in everything. Our brains need it. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, don't worry about it. But that's me. You need to make your own decision. I'm not here to diagnose you. I am not a doctor trying to convince you either way. I'm trying to say there is information out there that you can get. I will post a couple links below of some people that I really, really listen to and confide in, and they have reason to do this. Dave Feldman, Ivor Cummins, and then half the nutritional health space is all against this vegetable oils, which I think you should pay attention to because I think they're poison. I don't believe there is a place for any seed oil in your diet. That includes canola, safflower, sunflower, rapeseed, grapeseed, sesame. I mean, sesame oil is a couple little drops, probably isn't the worst thing in the world, but frying your food in canola oil is very dangerous. And if you look into the science, into the physiology and the biology, you can see the metabolic dysfunction it causes your adipose tissue, your cells, and what the potential damages can happen. And it accumulates over time. So where has this happened? Financially driven agendas, pushing us to consume things that aren't natural. We've said this before. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to post some links below. But cholesterol is your friend, because without it, you dead. Fact. All right, guys. Please like and subscribe to this channel. And if this can help anybody sort of not be terrified, the worse you feel, if you're scared about this, there's even more reason to learn about it. Because I believe natural healing is out there. Whole food is vitally important. Not to mention, animal food is healthy. I mean, you might not want to eat it, that's fine. You might have ethics against it, that's fine. But you cannot argue the fact that it is healthy and essential for us. It's very valuable, precious. All right? So yes, thank you for your time. Please share this with somebody you love who is very concerned about this, because it's just another look that's not from money. I don't care about that. I care about your health. I care about my health and well-being. I want to be healthy. I want to be harder, better, faster, stronger. I don't want to be weak because I've been hoodwinked by some corporation or big food. So hopefully you care about it too. All right, guys. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon. Stay strong.